The Law of One, Book 5, Fragment 13, Session 24, February 15, 1981. Jim, the following information refers to two of the most widely rumored events in ufology in this country. The first refers to the supposed face-to-face meeting between extraterrestrials and then-President Dwight D. Eisenhower and some senior military staff at Edwards Air Force Base in California in February 1954. The second incident refers to the supposed crash of a UFO outside of Roswell, NM, in which the ufonauts on board supposedly died. It is further rumored that their bodies were stored in Hangar #18 at Wright-Patterson Air Base in Ohio. Once again we encountered the temptation to pursue information that seemed on the surface to be extremely interesting but which in truth would yield little or no information which might aid in the evolution of mind, body, or spirit. And we would have lost the raw contact because raw's narrow band contact was focused only on aiding our evolution and not on revealing the transient intricacies of how groups play games in this illusion. Carla. In 1962, when I joined with Donald to help make up the initial meditation group, which grew into L/L Research, there were several rumors being brooded about. Supposedly, the government knew all about UFOs, had contact. There were alleged conspiracies that various sources warned the public about. To this day, there has continued a steady stream of such prophecies and doomsday warnings of all kinds. Only the dates of Armageddon have changed, usually predicting doom within the next 2 or 3 years. It is not that I do not think UFOs are communicating with our government. They might be. Certainly they are here. The landing trace cases alone prove that something that makes dents in the ground is visiting us, and the many witnesses and abductees create a comprehensive picture of human-alien contact that is undeniable. It is that I feel that the real treasure the UFO entities have brought us are those of the spirit, not those of this world. Whatever the physical reality of UFOs and governmental doings, they remain part of the transient world picture, part of this heavy illusion. But the messages have a metaphysical content that 10,000 years would not make out of date or less meaningful. So I tend to respond to people's questions about such hijinks as these with a redirection back from phenomena to metaphysical truth. Session 24, February 15, 1981. Questioner: one thing that has been bothering me that I was just reading about is not too important, but I would really be interested in knowing if Dwight Eisenhower met with either the Confederation or the Orion Group in the 1950s. Ra, I am Ra. The one of which you speak met with thought forms which are indistinguishable from third density. This was a test. We, the Confederation, wished to see what would occur if this extremely positively oriented and simple congenial person with no significant distortion towards power happened across peaceful information and the possibilities which might append therefrom. We discovered that this entity did not feel that those under his care could deal with the concepts of other beings and other philosophies. Thus an agreement reached then allowed him to go his way, ourselves to do likewise, and a very quiet campaign, as we have heard you call it, be continued alerting your peoples to our presence gradually. Events have overtaken this plan. Is there any short query before we close? Questioner: another question with that is, was there a crashed spaceship with small bodies now stored in our military installations? Ra, I am Ra. We do not wish to infringe upon your future. Gave we you this information, we might be giving you more than you could appropriately deal with in the space/time nexus of your present somewhat muddled configuration of military and intelligence thought. Therefore, we shall withhold this information. The Law of One, Book 5, Fragment 14, Session 25, February 16, 1981. Jim, the following information gave us some insight into how one's choices can be used in either the positive or the negative sense, even when there is the seeming interference of negative entities in the manner of what many light workers call psychic attack and what we came to call psychic greetings. We chose the term greeting to emphasize that there does not have to be a negative experience on the part of the one who is greeted, and that the experience that the one who is greeted actually has is in direct proportion to how that entity looks at the situation. If one wishes to see such a greeting as a difficult attack, then that becomes the experience. One can, however, also choose to see the Creator in all entities and events, and can praise and seek the light within any situation, and then that will tend to become the experience. When this latter choice is made, the psychic greeting becomes a great blessing in that it presents to the one who is greeted an intensive opportunity to see the one Creator where it may be more difficult to see, and which, when accomplished, develops a great deal more spiritual strength than may normally be developed without the negative entities' aid in pointing out the weaker areas of our magical personalities. Psychic greetings can only be offered by negative entities, enhancing our own free will choices that are distorted towards service to self-thought and behavior. Our poor choices, usually reflecting a lack of love towards another or the self, get magnified by the negative entity and bleed away our efforts to seek the light and serve others until we are able to balance the situation with love, acceptance, compassion, tolerance, and the light touch. This is why Jesus said to resist not evil. To resist and fight is to see someone or something as other than the self, as other than the one Creator. That is the negative path. The positive path sees and loves all as the self and as the one. Carla, the work that was perforce mine during this time of psychic greeting was, as Jim pointed out, very helpful in focusing my will and attention. I remember feeling tremendously uplifted and held in safe hands through all of the episodes. The key was the surrender to seeing one's own dark side. I think Dion Fortune's description of how to deal with a vampiric entity, in that case a wolf, still to be the most direct example of the understanding needed to move through such times. This wise soul had a wolf appearing at her bed during training in white Western ritual magic. The solution was to draw the wolf directly into the breast, loving it and accepting it as self. Against fearless love, the powers of negation and death are helpless and melt away. I think those of Ra were very careful of our group, compared to some sources, who did not show much concern that they were wearing the instrument out. Advice such as was given for me could well apply to anyone who must husband one's energy. Session 25, February 16, 1981. Questioner: what cause or complex of causes has led to the instrument's chest cold, as it is called? Ra, I am Ra. This distortion towards illness was caused by the free will of the instrument in accepting a chemical substance which you call LSD. This was carefully planned by those entities which do not desire this instrument to remain viable. The substance has within it the facility of removing large stores of vital energy from the ingester. The first hope of the Orion entity which arranged this opportunity was that this instrument would become less polarized towards what you call the positive. Due to conscious efforts upon the part of this instrument, using the substance as a programmer for service to others and for thankfulness, this instrument was spared this distortion, and there was no result satisfactory to the Orion group. The second hope lay in the possible misuse of the most powerful means of transmission of energy between your peoples in the area of body complex distortions. We have not previously spoken of the various types of energy blockages and transfers, positive and negative, that may take place due to participation in your sexual reproductive complex of actions. This entity, however, is a very strong entity with very little distortion from universal green ray love energy. Thus this particular plan was not affected either, as the entity continued to give of itself in this context in an open or green ray manner rather than attempting to deceive or to manipulate other self. The only remaining distortion available, since this entity would not detune and would not cease sharing love universally under this chemical substance, was simply to drain this entity of as much energy as possible. This entity has a strong distortion towards busyness which it has been attempting to overcome for some time, realizing it not to be the appropriate attitude for this work. In this particular area, the ingestion of this substance did indeed, shall we say, cause distortions away from viability due to the busyness and the lack of desire to rest, this instrument staying alert for much longer than appropriate. Thus much vital energy was lost, making this instrument unusually susceptible to infections such as it now experiences. Questioner: the second question that the instrument requested is, how may I best revitalize myself not only now but in the future? Ra, I am Ra. This instrument is aware of the basic needs of its constitution, those being meditation, acceptance of limitations, experiences of joy through association with others, and with the beauty as of the singing, and the exercising with great contact, whenever possible, with the life forces of second density, especially those of trees, this entity also needing to be aware of the moderate but steady intake of foodstuffs, exercise being suggested at a fairly early portion of the day and at a later portion of the day before the resting. Questioner: the third question that she requested was, how may Dawn and Jim help to revitalize me? Ra, I am Ra. This is not an appropriate question for full answer. We can say only that these entities are most conscientious. We may add that due to this instrument's distortion towards imbalance in the space or time nexus, it would be well were this entity accompanied during exercise.